Right before they open the curtain, there's like a moment where I have two people standing on either side, and they open these curtains, and I just felt like this wave of calm. And I was like, this is what I've been meant to be doing with my life.
Welcome to the Creative Current Podcast, a show where I talk with Grammy-nominated musicians, Michelin star chefs, and other creatives. Not the 5-step playbook to success, but honest, personal conversations about what it actually feels like to live a creative life. I'm David Rust, and creativity has shown up for me in the early days of building Lyft, in playing salsa music in Cuba, and in running a hospitality business on farms. Through all of it, creating has taught me some of the most interesting things about myself. So let's go meet some incredible creators and hear what they've discovered about themselves along the way. Hey everybody. Today is already the 7th episode, which is wild to say because it's still early, but I remember when I was just having this idea, and the idea of having and recording a conversation a week felt like a lot. But here we are, having done it and having spoken with incredible people, from Grammy-nominated guitar players to legendary hospitality entrepreneurs to a college professor of mine. So it's been a real personal treat to have an excuse to talk to people who live creative lives about what that actually feels like and looks like. So thank you for listening in. Today, my guest is an amazing human who I met at a small intimate gathering on Market Street in San Francisco. And I didn't even know she was a singer when I first met her. I just spoke to her as a human and we really hit it off. And then all of a sudden I saw her walk up there and sing this incredible opera piece that I'll reshare on social media so you can see as well. And I was just blown away. And so after that event, I reached out to her and I said, I have to talk with you. I got to learn more about who you are in your life. And Lauren Jelencovich is who I'm talking to. And she is this incredibly bright, beaming personality she's been referred to as a nightingale because her voice, as you'll hear online, is just stunning. And she's touring the world with Yanni. She's toured with Dolly Parton. She has a bunch of her own music out. And she's sung on Broadway. Just an absolute incredible creative person. And so the topic we end up diving into today is around nerves and nervousness. And I found it really refreshing, the perspective on this, because at least in my experience, nervousness is always there when you're doing something that is actually personal and meaningful to you. But it was interesting to hear Lauren's relationship with nervousness and when she has nerves show up, and some surprising moments where she doesn't have nerves show up at all. And so let's dive in and see what she has to say. A place that I would love to start today is actually on the topic of nervousness, because it's interesting for me. Like, before each and every podcast, I can feel nerves in myself, no matter who it is, even if it's a close friend. There's something about the act of putting something out, recording something, that, at least for me, and I think for many people, creates a sense of nervousness. But when you and I met and I saw, you've of course sung in front of much larger audiences than where I met you. It was probably, 100 of us in like an intimate venue on Market Street in San Francisco. But you got up and sang, and it was very intimate. Like, I was probably, 5 feet away from you. You had the audience sitting right there. And I got no hint of nerves from you at all.
Oh my gosh.
And it kind of made me curious whether you still get nervous. And in what cases you do.
Yeah, I think that is a number one. It's a really great question, because people are always like, oh, a lot of people think that just because I sing and I do this all the time, people think that, oh, you don't have that. You love to be on stage. You don't have that nervousness. And it's actually not true. Nervousness has definitely evolved. When I was younger, I feel like part of me had this no fear, a little bit of that, when I was really young. But, and then as I grew to know like what I was doing and like seeing the people out there, I did start to develop like something that was a little bit more of, oh my God, I have to be good. Or I was like, I'm nervous. I would feel that nervousness. And I remember talking to my mom, and mom would be like, oh, you're not nervous. Like, you do that, and I'm like, no, I'm nervous, dude. And so, and they don't, and they change. I don't really necessarily think that they go away. I think it just changes. And, as I've done it a lot more, I feel like I've come to know like what my body does on its own. And I know what I need to do to like maintain them. I
Oh
also,
wow.
you know, preparation and practice and stuff that takes away a lot of nervous, like before I get really nervous about lyrics a lot of the time, but there's now some places where I'm like, oh, I know this like the back of my hand, like I'm not nervous at all anymore. I know it, like I'm not gonna mess up the lyrics. But then sometimes, you have this brain moment on stage, and you're like, where am I? uh you kind of just have to just roll with it. And
Yeah.
funny enough, the voice is a muscle and it does what it does, and you do it enough times it kind of comes back on its own. That's happened to me a couple of times. I'll tell you two particular stories. The first instance being like where I knew like this was without a doubt, I had no nerves, like I was just ready for this moment. And which was a really uh interesting moment because it was a very pivotal moment in my career, which was the first Yanni concert I ever sang at. And that call came, it was 5 or 6 days before this concert. The call came to say, Yanni wants you to sing for him. Can you record this song and email it to us? And then in the end, they were like, 2 days later, they're like, actually, you know what? We're just going to buy you an airline ticket. Can we fly you tomorrow morning? So it was a really whirlwind moment. And I feel like maybe I was running on adrenaline, but also I was like, I had been wanting a moment like this for my life. And I feel like I had envisioned it, and I I was manifesting it. Like I was going to be ready for whenever it did happen. And so I ended up flying to Puerto Rico, and then I ended up getting on the stage, but right before they open the curtain, there's like a moment where I have two people standing on either side, and they open these curtains, and and I just felt like this wave of calm, and I was like, this is what I've been meant to be doing with my life, and I'm ready for this. But before this, like thinking about it in the 5 days prior, I had very little time to like, okay, wrap my brain around like, okay, because he was like, okay, great, you sound great. We're going to Puerto Rico in 5 days, and we're singing for 18,000 people. Okay. I think like the largest crowd I'd ever sang for at that point was like 6,000 people, which was still a
Wow.
lot of people. And to be just like flown to, some other place, and and then do a rehearsal with the band. We rehearsed maybe twice the day before, and then a sound check that afternoon, and then the show. And that was it. I didn't even tell anybody I was going. I didn't tell anybody I got this contract. Like I was like, I don't know what to expect, so I'm just gonna go. And luckily, I had done these vocal programs in Puerto Rico before, and I had a couple friends that were in the audience, which I did not know until afterwards. They're like, "You just left the stage with Yanni." They texted me, and I was like, "Oh my God, you're here! I cannot believe it." But so that moment in particular, I was very much like, wow, I am ready for this. And I went out and I did it, and I still feel like it's one of the greatest ones I've ever done.
My
Which is
God.
really weird because it was the first one, and then there's been many since with him. But
And can I ask
so
before you
that's
share this
yeah.
this second example, because you had
Yeah.
mentioned before that there's a certain trust just in that your body's going to do what it does,
Yeah.
right? And especially with
Yeah.
singing, right? Or certain creative expressions where it's a very bodily heavy thing.
Yeah.
Uh would you say that back then you just had really trusted in your body's ability already, even at that age, to just do it?
I mean, I I guess possibly. Yeah. I
Or
mean, I
was it not
think
even a
that
cognitive thing? It sounds like you just didn't. I mean, maybe even the short amount of time that you had didn't even allow your brain to kick in. It was just go.
yeah, that could be it too. I think it was just like I had wanted something like this for so long that yeah, did that. Like, I felt like I was prepared in advance for something like this to happen. And so, yeah, in the moment, my body probably did go into overdrive and was like, no, you're doing this. And I maybe just, I think it was a combination of maybe just yeah, my body doing it, and also my own mindset of this is what I've been meant to do for my whole
Yeah.
life. Like,
Yeah.
um,
Oh,
so Yeah, I don't
I
know
mean, when
if
you
that
shared,
answer is
yeah, when you shared that story, it was like all my hair is standing on end because there's a couple of times in my life where I've been able to witness that moment for somebody, right? That
okay.
moment that's like their first big moment.
Yeah.
And it's such a beautiful thing. Like to me, that's even more beautiful than going to see, somebody like a quote unquote great who's done this a gazillion times. There's that moment where you get to witness somebody
Yeah.
stepping into that space. And I can just imagine that.
Yeah, it was really, yeah, I understand what you're saying. That it's a special moment. Oh my God, I wish you were there.
Yeah, I mean, I too wish. But then you also had this experience of, I think you were 16, right? You were in high school on the Ed McMahon show.
Yes,
And
that was a
so,
whole other, that's
right, what did you
exactly.
feel like in that situation, right? I mean, this is also massive
So,
audience.
yeah, I mean, well, massive in a different way. It was for television, but it was a live audience and it was being televised. And so, even though it was a small TV audience, your mind kind of knows that there are other people out there watching. Did I know exactly how many other people would be watching? No, I probably didn't. I was 16. Yeah, 15. I was 15 about to be 16.
Wow.
And the other thing was there was another girl who was 15, but she was in the kids category. And I was like, well, why am I'm 15, but I'm in an adult category. I was like, is it just because of like the way my voice sounds? I don't know. Or maybe I don't know why that was, but I was like, oh my gosh. But that was, yeah, I got nervous on that one because, and I'll tell you this story. I had, when I was younger, I would never want to go first on a concert. I don't know. I like to like scope it out and see like if there's other people singing or I used to want to have like a moment before the concert, really started, I just didn't want to be the first thing on the concert. And so I had met Ed obviously throughout this process and right before we started filming, um, and I had like Teen Magazine. Do you remember that magazine that was
Yeah.
out? They came in, they flew in somebody to interview me and they like took all these photos in like the dressing room. And I was like, already, Cisco was there. I found a picture recently and I was like, oh, there's me backstage talking to Cisco, the thong song guy. I
Yeah.
don't, and I had this moment of like, I was excited. I knew where it was going to go. We did a dress rehearsal of the cues and everything. And right before we started, it was about maybe like a half hour before, I got a call and said, Ed McMahon wants to see you in the dressing room. And I was like, okay, cool. I don't know what this is about. But so I went in and he was like, okay, listen, we're going to change some things and you're going to go first. Which in my mind, as a 15-year-old who never wanted to go first ever, I was like, that sounds like maybe we shouldn't do that, you know? And he was like, no, 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 it's called putting your best foot forward and you're going first. And I was like, okay, that's a very high compliment in itself, but also I'm going to freak out just a little bit. On the inside, I was like, oh my gosh. And so it was a little bit different from when we rehearsed, and there was a stage manager and everything. And so they start playing my music. It's not a live band, it was recorded music. And so they start playing the music after they announced me. Destiny's Child introduced me. Like it was like a huge, and so my music starts playing, and I was like, okay, well, I have X amount of time to walk out in the intro to get to the center of the stage to then start singing. There's like all these things that go through your mind, and it's the way that we rehearsed it. And I was like, okay, I'm ready. I practiced it alone. And so then this like kind of turn of events where he was like, you're going first, I was kind of a little bit jittered. And I looked at the stage manager and I was like, okay, I was like, so can I go out now? Can I go out now? Because my song had already started. And they were like, no, don't go, no, don't go, don't go. And then the first line of my song, where I should have been singing the first line of my song, had just started. And so I looked at the stage manager and I was like, well, that's the first line of my song. Can I go now? And she was like, go, go. And so I felt like I was rushed out there and I got out there and I was already like in my head. But again, I think my body kind of did what it did. And I was just able to pick up and just go and do it. But afterwards, I felt like, oh my gosh, I've messed up this moment. And
Yeah.
I was really sad.
Yeah.
And I used to pretend to be on that show when I was 5. So I was this 10 years later, I was like, this is the greatest moment of my life, at 15. And I was like devastated that I had maybe messed this up and so that I was really nervous and it ended up working out fine in the end, which
Well, I mean,
was
you
great.
won,
But
right? I mean,
I
yeah,
won. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. But like I was, of course, like, oh my gosh, when something like that happens, I'm like, well, that's what it is. That's what's gonna mess me up. Like that's why I'm
hmm,
not gonna win first, that type of a thing. And that's why, I have all these nerves. Another thing I wish I would have known when I was younger is I do a lot of like the second story I was gonna tell you was uh nerves like in a smaller intimate setting are something that get to me more so than a huge audience. I mean, yes, the huge audience is there. Sometimes though, that's like, there's lights that block people out, so I can't like
yeah.
totally see them all. I can only see like the first 5 or 6 rows, maybe. It's very depends, but also, and but like smaller like room settings, like how we met, I wasn't like completely not nervous. I was a little bit like, oh, I'm not sure how people are going to respond to this, because it is different. What I do is different, and I was like, and it's very different from what we've just heard. So I don't know, but I think also it's different enough that it's going to be memorable and people are going to be really impressed. So I
Yeah.
think I had that like small confidence in that setting, with that small room. But when I had been doing a lot of auditions for Broadway and off Broadway stuff, and like I would get called in for Phantom of the Opera for Christine and Phantom of the Opera and Glinda in Wicked. How many times have I gotten down to the top 5 girls to Glinda in Wicked?
Yeah.
I mean, I can read those sides. I don't even need to read them. I've memorized them, but I never quite got it. And I think that part of me was always like, I want to be what they want me to be. And I was always very in my head and nervous about that. But in reality, um, you have to just be you, and what you have is enough. And I didn't fully know that when I was going in for all of those things. So I
Mm,
feel like I was like, I need to make myself what they want, but that's not the case. I needed to just be me, I feel like. So if I had the opportunity to go back and do stuff like that, or, if it comes again, now I feel more secure in my nerves, essentially, that
right.
I would be like, that's it. Like, okay, I've gone in, I've done my best, like, that type of thing. I don't
Well, it's
know.
interesting because in singing and acting, there's this phenomenon that like the form of creative expression oftentimes comes about by being called into an audition of some sort, right?
Yeah.
Somebody has a show, somebody has performance, they're on tour, whatever it is, and they want you to be a part of it. Um,
Yeah.
but I imagine there's also things that you want to put out that you already do put out that have nothing to do with being called into anything. It's just
Yeah.
your own dreams and desires. And I'm
Yeah.
curious what that looks like for you these days, where it seems like a lot of the dreams you've had since you were a kid have sort of come true, right? In that
They have.
way, being
Yeah.
on
A
the Ed
lot of
McMahon
them.
show and others. I'm sure there are other dreams, but
Yeah.
when you think about the dreams that you currently live or you have that
Hmm.
don't rely on anybody else, what do some of those look like for you right now?
Well, okay, so what do my dreams look like right now? Like the things that I want to do, or like the nervousness of putting it out there? Because there's
Ooh,
still that too.
well, I mean,
You know?
I love that you're asking that because to me, those go hand in hand, right? Like the things
Yeah.
that I most want to create are the things that I am
Hmm.
most nervous to share.
Yeah. And then sometimes that it can be debilitating. Like I could be so nervous about putting it out or being such a perfectionist about things that I have been wanting to do and I'm not sure how it's going to be received, that I tend to withhold and I don't do
Right,
it.
right.
Even though I know that I should. And I feel like I'm in a moment of my life where I'm like, I'm ready to start putting my stuff out there.
Yeah.
I think for a
What is
while
one
I
of those
felt like,
nervous edges?
oh gosh, it could be anything. Like I mean, releasing a song, like even just releasing a song that I've written, that like because people don't know me as like a writer, and I don't really say that I'm a writer. I think I've written things that are good, but I feel like I maybe need someone to help me, like working with different producers or different writers that could help, make it something a little bit better and then release it. Or the people that I have played it for are like, you should release this. This is really good. But I am too nervous to do that because, you know,
Yeah.
that type of a thing. Or like a project that like I, have an idea. I mean, I have like a couple different ideas that I've been wanting to do that I haven't done yet. And it's mostly because, yeah, well, there's a lot of other things. Like there's, the whole aspect of being an independent artist. So like you have to rely on what you have as an artist
Yeah.
money wise to get things done. But also the creative part behind it. Like, um, will somebody think like me and appreciate and like love it as much as I do? I don't know. And then part you have to get out of your own way.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I have like ideas that I've been wanting to do for a really long time, different concept albums, different, TV specials, which would be really great. Um, and then different collaborations that I want to work on with people.
Yeah.
And then and I've also been sitting on a song that I recorded a while back that I haven't released, but I have everything in motion to do it.
Yeah.
And then it's trying to come up with, nowadays you need like marketing plans and all of these things for things to really hit rather than, you know, just releasing it and seeing what happens, which you could
Yeah.
do and that would be fine. But then the business aspect of it, people are like, oh, you should have a plan behind everything you release, right?
Well, and I can hear that.
And
I
it's,
mean, so much of that can be heady, right? And it can be very
yeah.
thought driven in contrast to the experience you've had of just trust your body. I mean, I feel this a lot in my life where I just wish
Uh-huh.
it could all be that feeling of just letting your body do its thing.
Just
But there's a
right.
lot of moments like I need to release a song or I need to put a product out in the world or I'm launching a business or whatever that has all this seemingly very cognitive stuff to it where
Hmm.
then overthinking and perfectionism and all of that can come in, but it also seems quite necessary. I mean, I was just interviewing these friends who are chefs and they just won their first Michelin star. They're incredible.
Oh, it's
And
amazing.
yeah,
Tell
like
me
one of the
where I
best
need to
meals I've
go.
ever had. Yeah,
Okay.
go to Oakland, California.
Okay. I
um,
gotta get back to California.
yes, and what's interesting talking to them is they describe something similar, which is when they're on the line, like when they're cooking and there's dinner
Mhm.
service and they're just in that flow. That's their flow state, right? The stroke of the knife, the plating. I mean, it's just the body takes over. But they
Yeah.
described how there are all these other parts about it when it comes to how to manage reservations, how to do back and forth communication with the guests, how to handle trash pickup and cleaning and
Right.
human resources and paychecks. And it's everything has its version of that. And yeah, it makes me wonder how do you relate to those pieces? Do you hate those pieces of the work? Do you somehow find a way of enjoying it?
Yeah, it's funny. Well, it came from an interesting, obviously, like I'm a singer and I went to a music conservatory where I focused mostly on classical music and opera, and I did do a little bit like musical theater. Now the school that I went to, it's called the Manhattan School of Music, is where I graduated from, and now they have a wonderful musical theater program, like but before when I was there many, many years ago, they didn't have that. They had like a class that you could take and it was a musical theater class, you put on a show or whatever. But they didn't offer any business classes, you know? It was purely a music conservatory. I didn't have any science, I didn't have any math, I didn't have
Yeah.
anything else. It was like music, music, music. But I feel like back then it would have been really helpful for someone like me now to have had some sort of business class, even for a semester. And so I kind of had to learn on my own. Um, and I have really wonderful parents who have been very supportive and are always, been with me every step of the way, obviously, since I was a kid. And I did a lot of professional things when I was in high school and in
Yeah.
college. But, and they were always looking out for me, which was really great. But then, they can't always look out for you. And then at a certain point, you have to do stuff on your own. And so I never
Yeah.
had like an agent. I had like freelance with some agents. I'm a voiceover agent, but, you know, um, number one, nobody really fights for you as much as you will fight for yourself, and your family will fight for you, um, and so it got to a point where I was like, I need to get concerts like outside of the ones that I'm doing. I do a lot of like corporate events and private parties and and performing arts places and community concert associations, which is really great. But there was a moment where I was like, how am I going to get more concerts? Like I can figure out how to market myself. And so I like went through and I like took a bunch of design things on YouTube. YouTube, I learned everything off of YouTube, even play the guitar off of YouTube. But
Yeah.
I was like, what can I do to like up my game a little bit? And so I tried to do that, doing stuff on Canva, which was really great because I have very specific ideas on how I want things to look. But I didn't want to pay somebody to do it. So, because number one, I didn't have the money to do it. Like, I was like, I'm gonna have to, figure this out on my own a little bit. I need to Photoshop. Like, how do I make a gradient? Like, just someone, hours on. I'm not a technical person. I never had those classes, and I was like, all right, we're just gonna YouTube this, and we're gonna wing it. And I do
Yeah.
it for like a period of time, and then I forget about it, and then I'm like, oh gosh, I have to remind myself. How do I do this again? But it got to a point where I was like, all right, I'm gonna do this, and so I also realized that not a lot of people would listen to artists as they try to promote themselves. So I created a little alias and I created my own little boutique agency and a name that I would write people as, and then also be on the
Wow.
phone with people as. I
Wow.
was like, I do a little voiceover work. I can change the sound of my voice and be, her name is Mary. I go by Mary. And so, and I got concerts and I started to book myself my own concerts.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
so that kind of was a little bit fun and kind of like in the realm of the acting world that I came from, which, kind of, did a little hand in hand work on that one, I guess. So that kind of made it interesting and fun. But, yeah, I mean, but also it's grueling when you don't know and you're not, like I'm a business person, but, I'm definitely more creative. And so you kind of have to turn on different parts of your brain to
Yeah. Well, it seems
make
like you
the things
found a way to
happen.
make those things creative, right? Like it seems like you
Yeah.
found a way of just getting into Canva, watching YouTube videos,
Yeah.
coming up with an alter ego who
Yes.
books things for you.
I know.
Which, by the way, a
I was
friend
like,
of mine did the same thing, and I actually think it's an incredibly effective strategy. She had
it's great.
realized that she has an interior design business, and that if
Okay.
she emailed clients as
Yeah.
if she was this person's like assistant,
Yeah.
then
Then
it would make the person feel like, oh, this is much more professional, this is a much bigger deal, which is all an illusion, but it
Yeah,
works.
exactly. My favorite was like, oh, okay, so because I couldn't figure out how to respond to people as Mary, I would do like big mass emails to
Yeah.
people, and I would be like, oh, contact us, Mary at management@laurenjelencovich.com. Like I designed my website, I did all my stuff, and then I was like, and sending out these marketing emails, and then people would respond, and I would talk to them, and they would respond to Mary, but then it would come to my email, and I still haven't figured out how to respond as with Mary's email. So
Right.
then I do the hi, so and so. I saw your email come into my management team and I wanted to
Which makes it
personally
even more
introduce.
interesting.
It
Yeah.
makes it even better. And they're like, oh my God, Lauren's reaching out on her own. And so then
Yeah.
after I do the deal, right? I do this whole entire deal. I get they're like, so should we send the contract to Mary or how do you want to handle it? I was like, you know what? You just send it to me. I'll send it to Mary. I got it. I'll,
Oh my
I'll forward it
gosh.
along,
You know what
because
what it makes me wonder is, I mean, you've been able to work with some, of the most famous artists in the world, right? Dolly Parton, Yanni, others.
uh,
Have you ever heard stories of them having to do this? I mean, I think everybody in the early days has to do something scrappy that
yeah.
when you look back, you're like, I can't believe I did it. Do you know of any of those stories from
So
them?
it's funny. So I have done this for a really long time. This Mary character that I have, my alter ego, and then many years later, I saw. I think it was like Hugh Grant or somebody that did it an interview, and I guess he did that too. He created a manager for himself or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, see, I'm not the only one. Like this, clearly I'm on the right path. Hugh
Yeah.
Grant is doing it and he's successful. Okay, I'll get there one
Yeah.
day. No.
Oh my gosh.
And then obviously, and Dolly Parton, she is a real life earth angel, okay, and quite the business lady. she is, like her song, I'm Not a Dumb Blonde, she is incredibly smart and, and does a lot for a lot of people. So I think that's kind of like a little inspiration too. But yeah, those are the only like, I mean, he's the only one that I really like heard about doing it. And then
Yeah.
other artists I've talked to, like other small independent artists, a lot like colleagues of mine, we were chatting about how we're really like go-getters and we want to work and we are trying to create, what can we do? How can we, move the needle forward a little bit. And some of them have even been like, maybe we should just start our own agency. And they do, and it comes from that. And then they get on other artists and then they're booking themselves and other artists.
Yeah.
Mary's a boutique
Yeah.
agency. She only has time for one. No.
Yeah. Yeah. Her full time
Yeah.
is taken up with Lauren.
Exactly. She
Yeah.
was entertainment management. Very boutique.
Well, I love hearing this theme of times in life where it seems like you've been a student and times in life where you've been like a teacher, right?
Yeah.
And where you've shared your knowledge, your wisdom of the things that you've learned with others, and times where you went into student mode, whether that was teaching yourself things, or I
Hmm.
imagine there's things that you've probably learned and picked up from performers that you've worked with. And
Yeah.
so when you think about things that you've learned and things that you've taught others around, your creative life and your creative process, what are some of those things?
Oh man. I mean, whew, that's a tough one. I
Mm,
tend to also I share a lot, I'm very open about obviously Mary, now that that's like out there in the world, I was always very encouraging to other people, I feel like, and was like, this is what I did. Like, this is what you have to do. And there are
yeah.
others that are out there. I have some dear friends that are kind of the same way. And we'll have like meetups on YouTube, on FaceTime or whatever, and be like, hey, can we have a creative, like, brain sesh? Like, let's just
Hmm.
hash out some things. What are you doing that's working for you? Um, and it's things that you've learned along the way and you share the business stuff for sure, obviously. um Vocally speaking, I teach, and I go and I do master classes and I work with kids, and it's, on that front it's usually like the performing aspect of things. I like to share, um you know, try to get people to get out of their own way too, because I
Yeah.
know what that's like now. I've learned and now I'm trying to share that with them. So that's like one thing. And I'm trying to think of like what else there is.
On
Um,
on that piece of performing,
yeah,
because yeah, I mean, we talked about nerves before, right? I imagine when you're teaching kids or adults
yeah.
how to be natural on stage, how to perform, there's a lot that could block that. What do you tell people?
Well, to be them, to be themselves. That's, I think that people, you know, get whether, I mean, there's different, obviously different types of performances, whether you're doing like a specific like role, with certain things. There's always a little bit of you in those roles, I feel like. You bring what you have to it and then you embody the role and the character that you're taking on. But some people, people who are starting out in career in their music, whether you're a young singer or even adults, that I've worked with, some of them get like really stiff and they feel like they're like having to perform, and I don't know how to explain that outside of being like, all right, now I am doing this, like, and they think that it's like a, when you're in a concert setting, it's not necessarily like that. In a show or a full body production or something, it's a little bit different. But if you're like getting up and you're performing a song in front of, an audience, um, there's a little bit of you, and try to be more natural with it. Because then you see people that are like wanting to overuse their body in a not natural way because they're not used to using this as a form of communication normally, you know?
Yeah.
So I try to like, make them jiggle out. They're a lot nervous and
Yeah.
that type of a thing, which kids always love, obviously. And even adults, I'm like, get out of your, stand up, number one, don't sit. If you're going to sing a song, let's, you gotta be in it. And
Yeah.
the more open that you are with your body, the more open this is, and the more open your sound will be, and the more connected you will be to your own, your own artistry and what you have, what you're trying to say and what you're singing about, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I hope that
It
made
makes so
sense.
much sense. Well, and
Okay.
I remember reading that you had described somewhere that it feels to you like your voice is a gift, right? And
Yes.
when I heard that, what was interesting is when you think about a gift, it's oftentimes something that you are given, right? And
Yeah.
so does it feel like that to you? Because in some ways, this whole trusting your body, I'm also hearing is trusting that there's this thing that you have, this
Uh-huh.
skill, this ability that in some ways is yours, but also not yours.
Yeah, that you're there. There's a line, Yeah, it is. It's both, Um, it is me. It's my voice is essentially my fingerprint, right? They're like fingerprints. Your vocal cords and the way that you sound. And it is given. I feel like it is given to me, and I feel like um I had well, I needed to go through the training to make it, you know, to really foster it, uh, to be able to share it. So you kind of become like a steward of what you've been given, if that makes sense. You know?
Yeah. So
Um,
so much so.
yeah, and
Are
I
you actively aware of that? Do you think about that when you're practicing and when you're performing that you're sort of almost in some ways being of service to this thing that you've been given?
I try to always, yeah, remind myself of that. I think that's a big part of, you know, of performing and singing and sharing. Um, and that also helps with nerves too, where it's like somebody may need this. Somebody may need this in this moment. My voice, what I'm singing, the words I'm singing, the music I'm sharing, whether there are lyrics or no lyrics. Somebody out there may need it for whatever time of life they are in, or if they're in
Yeah.
a joyful moment, if they're in a sad moment, if they're in a celebrate, like anything. Like I always try to remind myself before I go on stage, or even before I record, I like, yeah, like it's not just, it's me, but it's also not just me and for me. It's for
Yeah.
others too. And
Yeah.
um and so I'll reference one other moment, one of the biggest moments that I can think of, was I was the first woman to ever sing in Saudi Arabia, which was in in my mind one of the most moving moments I've had on stage. And in that in particular, before going out there, it wasn't something that Yanni was like, he even said to the audience, there's a lot of firsts that are happening on this stage tonight. And I knew that going into it, but they weren't ever able to like say it out loud on the concert or before the concert. After the concert, people said it. And I remember asking like security, like, how will it, what's gonna happen? Like, what if I'm up there and somebody doesn't like that? Like, because I don't know, it's a first time. I don't have to have my head covered. I'm, being respectful, covering my shoulders. I wore my own dress, like
Yeah.
the dress that I wear on stage. But also, this is a moment that where women haven't been able to do this before. And to me, and that's a huge thing. And this is something I do every day. It's like, I don't even think about it. Like I just sing responses. Like I don't even think about it. The fact that I walk out on a stage and hold a microphone, I never take it for granted. I don't take it for granted, but I sometimes it's just something that's so ingrained in me that I've been doing for, you know, over 30 years essentially, like um
Yeah.
that moment before I walked out on stage, I was like, this is not for me. This is happening for all of those people that are out there. And I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional. And
Yeah.
and
No, I'm
Yanni
feeling
did
it too.
too.
Yeah.
And after I finished singing, the song I sang was Nightingale, which is a
Mm.
song that I've become fairly well known for with him. Um,
Mm.
I I felt like, I mean, I can recall a few moments where like, oh, that was a great performance of, because I'm very critical of myself. I think all artists are, but also like I'm like, that moment right there, that was the moment. They couldn't have gone any better. It was perfect. And and even whatever happened was perfect, you know? And as I finished that last note, I think I was so overwhelmed with the feelings, and what I was doing. Um, and then the response was so warm that I couldn't help but cry on stage.
Yeah.
And I remember hugging Yanni, and he was like, "You did this. You did." And I was like, and I walked off stage, and Yanni's daughter was there, and I like just broke down into tears because I was like, "Okay, this was good." And then when I met people afterwards, they were like, "You walked on stage with a microphone. You walked on stage when you walked out with a microphone. I couldn't believe it, you know?" And I was like, wow. And they were like, "You're going to be in the history books." I don't know if I am, but like the fact that people were there and were moved by what I had to offer is a really special thing. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I
Oh.
definitely know it's a gift, and I know that people need it, outside of
But
me
in that
needing
moment,
it too.
I'm hearing how much that moment was like this poignant moment where you could witness that in action. It was like, oh, this
Yeah,
is me. All these years I've been practicing and honing my craft to be here. But
yeah,
also, it's not about me because there's this whole societal moment that's happening. Me being able to do this is creating an experience for so many people. And I can only
yeah.
imagine what that's like being there and being aware of that while it's happening at that scale.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting moment, and one obviously that I look back on with like, okay, it
I
was
actually
really
watched
special.
that video
Oh, you
of
did?
you singing Nightingale earlier today.
Okay.
And what's interesting is you can even tell in the video that that moment's happening. Because
Yeah,
at some point it
okay.
pans to your face. I don't know when the last time is that you watched the video,
I
but
haven't watched it in a
what
while, but
but
I
there's
should rewatch it.
expression that I could pick up on your face where I could tell like you are having one of your peak life moments right now. Like there
That's
was this
very special.
feeling I could just see.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't help but smiling because I was like, wow,
Yeah,
there is
thank
something
you.
happening here that was captured too, so you can relive it.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad that you could see that, because I can only feel it obviously, and then I can, see obviously video and whatnot. But I'm glad that others were able to experience that. It's
Yeah.
special. So
Does that type of because that type of moment, I don't know, sometimes might only happen once in a lifetime, might never happen for someone in a lifetime.
yeah.
Do you having experienced that at least once, is that something that you aim for again? Like are you consciously thinking about the creating those type of moments?
Um, yeah, I mean, I feel like, yeah, in a way, I mean, obviously that was such an interesting moment that I don't know if I would have been able to create on my own without Yanni. That was like a big thing when they brought him there. I would love for something like that to happen again. And of course, like I have dreams that, I could be able to create something like that, when I am, a little bit further on, I think, in my career. But I think every performance that I give, I do try to feel like it is a moment that will never be recreated, and you can't recreate the moment that you had, three concerts prior. You can, that's another thing too. It's it's a live moment. You have to also, it's the way you feel in the day, and like vocally, like how health what, there's like so many other things that go into it. But yeah, I hope that every performance I have, it has a little bit of something that is that gives that importance. I don't know if I'm making that clear, but
Yeah. Yeah.
like,
Well, it sounds like it's not something you can plan for or try to recreate to some extent.
yeah,
You can put
I don't
yourself
know.
in a position where it might happen.
Right, right. And welcome all of those positions. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
because they're so, well, number one, I mean, it's such a moment when you're doing it that, yeah. Um, yeah, I would hope that at some point there would be a way to do something again like that.
Yeah. Oh, well, Lauren, I know we're getting close to time, but this was so
Oh
beautiful
my
getting
gosh,
to
I could
experience
talk
this
to
and
you
also
all day.
feel. Oh, I agree. Well, and feel the
Like,
emotion of it. I mean, on my side, I felt so many moments of hair standing on end and emotions,
oh,
and it's just that's why I love doing this, is
Yeah.
because I don't know, for a lot of life and for a lot of people, work doesn't necessarily have those
Right.
moments, or the act of creation doesn't necessarily have that. And so I think it's so beautiful to witness what
Mm.
life can feel like and what creative expression can feel like and what it can result in. And so I so appreciate you sharing that.
Oh my gosh, of course. Thank you so much. This is, I mean,
Yeah.
it's so fun and I love to share and, you know,
Mm.
sometimes it doesn't feel like work because it's something I love.